What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the second album by rock band Sum 41. Basically, this project is called Does This Look Infected, and it came out in the fall of 2002. Now, this is the follow-up to their first album, All Killer No Filler, from 2001, which is a particular hit album. I reviewed that way back in 2016. I like that album, a good assortment. And back in those days, I think I only really liked Fat Lip in terms of the singles. I mean, there were some other songs I liked on that album, but I want to say I didn't like the other single, which was In Too Deep, as much. But years later, I do like that song a lot more now. So I do like the singles off of All Killer No Filler. But I wanted to review this one just because it's been a while. I touched base with Sum 41 back in the summer of 2022, but I need to review more of their stuff. And this one was the follow up that I needed to get to for quite some time. So I'm finally going to do that. Going to see some stuff on here. And I would have to say, like, this is, I mean, this one's not quite as new metal. It does have a very light hip hop influence on like one particular song or so, but there is a lot of good stuff on here. And I just overall like the edginess that this album kind of conveys. It's definitely, or I can definitely kind of see like Sum 41's All Killer No Filler album from 2001 kind of being, or I can definitely kind of see Sum 41's All Killer No Filler album from 2001 being a lot more pop punk, similar to like Blink 182 and Good Charlotte and some of those type folks. Just really has that pop kind of punk commercial edge. Songs like Fat Lip and In Too Deep are just a lot more light guitar licks and just a lot more commercial. But I feel like this album just has like a real mean streak across it, and I just would have to say it's pretty awesome to kind of get as far as that kind of goes. Just a real dark edginess that these riffs on this album are just more rugged and just shrill and just overall not quite horrific, but just kind of in the concept of just having a more kind of darker edge towards them that just gives it a lot more compelling, just kind of broodiness about it. And I just like the concept. You can tell by the ghastly album cover that this kind of had a different pitch, but I definitely like it. I like the concept. Like, I do somewhat miss like the light, kind of more jovial type feel of All Killer No Filler, but I do kind of feel like it's just a different kind of venture for them that showcases them in a pretty good light. And I do like the concept of getting it. It's just kind of the concept. It's just kind of, it's kind of like when you think of a movie where the hero is just kind of a little bit more of an asshole this time around, when you see like a trilogy of movies, and in the second movie he just kind of has like a more darker streak. This is kind of the concept on here, but I definitely like the variation as far as that kind of goes and such. It's just a good concept to kind of get, and I do like all the singles, and I think actually I definitely know I'm going to score this album higher than I scored All Killer No Filler back in 2016, but I do think that's a better album nowadays. But I would have to say, yeah, this is a pretty excellent album here. It has a lot of good stuff going for it and just a lot of good edginess. And despite the fact that it's kind of less commercial, I feel like they handle alternative metal and pop punk just a little bit better this time, or at least I feel like the edginess is just really compelling. Like, the band does an excellent job on here, so the band doesn't slip, and Derek Whibley doesn't slip either. It's just kind of the concept of getting some of this as far as that kind of goes, just looking after it. And I would have to say, this is just a really well put together and excellent album, I'd have to say. So we'll get towards it and we'll talk about the singles and such. So yeah, there were three singles. We'll go ahead and talk about the singles on here. There were three of them. So the first single is Still Waiting, and this is kind of a darker evening out kind of romp. I would say it's some usual antics, and it's got some good visceral energy about it, and it gets things going really quickly. So this is just one compared to Fat Lip from their 2001 album All Killer No Filler. This one's just a lot more edgy and just has that this one's just a lot more edgy and has that complete dark shrill streak that I was talking about as far as that kind of goes. Just a real nice kind of just really pounded one. This is just really kind of like a headbanging type one. Just has the energy just right off the bat. Just really nails it, and just kind of, you get right into it just with like a large kind of just hit effectual kind of lead single that just carries like some real, get to a compelling bop that just has a lot of thrilling and just overall infectious kind of energy that just works pretty damn well. So that's a good concept about it. This is just a hooky one. Like, I do like I said, there's not really a song like Fat Lip or In Too Deep particularly on here, but I still think that this energy that they have on this new kind of darker edge about it just works pretty damn well. So it's just a heavier project, just a more sheer project, and just a more metal prone more so than punk rock is kind of punk metal, I would have to say, in a lot of senses. So that's a good concept about it, but it is pretty edgy and works. Hell Song, the second single, is definitely a nice one. So if you like Blink 182, I'd say this is a good song to turn to. This is like a more dark and brooding version of All the Small Things by Blink 182. Definitely has the same kind of tempo and riff assortment as far as that kind of goes. It's a very similar format to that sort of stuff. So if you're used to like the pop punk type sound throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, this is a good example of one to kind of get in that same sort of format. It's All the Small Things type song, I would have to say, and it's pop punk, but it's just edgier. So this is just a very dark version of that particular stuff that's just punk. This is the sort of concept that I was talking about there. Just a little bit more mangled this time, a little bit more edgy and just a little bit more kind of thrilling as far as that, or a little bit more subdued as far as that kind of goes. But I just like the concept of getting some of this just in terms of the concept of like just these hitting. So it's just interesting kind of get dark pop punk just because I look after it. Usually pop punk is just a lot more like it just felt more bubblegum in the past. It'd be interesting to kind of see Blink 182 do some styles like this because it's just interesting. This kind of has like a mean streak about it that's just so interesting. But the lyrics of the song, like, Derek Whibley talked about the fact that he had known like some chick who had some HIV positive type problems as far as that kind of went. And it just inspired this particular song. This kind of had an edginess towards it. It's just a good concept of this. It's a good concept of talking about misfortune as far as that kind of goes. But I do like the edginess. This definitely works as like a good hit radio song to kind of have here. And I just feel like all these songs just really have connectability despite the fact that Sum 41 is 2 for 2 with these singles. They are a little bit edgier and a little bit more brooding, but I do like the concept of getting these because they work. That's just a good concept about it. So some good stuff. Despite the fact that they're darker does not mean that they don't have their commercial edge. So just pay attention to that. So the third single is Over My Head, Better Off Dead. And this is Over My Head, Better Off Dead is the third single. And this is a really nice one. I would have to say this is a good evening song to wake up to, definitely. It's a good, lively, dark, makeshift bustle of a song, I would have to say, and it's some good evening calmer. So this is definitely one to kind of have waking up at 7:30, 8:30 p.m., something like that. Just the thrilling evening makeshift of going into work at night, that type of stuff. Just the evening bustle, getting some snacks, that type of stuff, picking up pizzas, some things like that. Just evening commerce, just nightlife and just that sort of affairs. This song doesn't necessarily have to be a club song. I kind of feel like it's just kind of car commute and just traverse just in the evening, that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. I do like the pace of this one. It's another dark one that just kind of feels, this one's a little bit more pop punk and this one's a little bit more commercial ready, where I feel like the Hell song was a little bit more brooding and just a little bit more angsty as far as that kind of went, like kind of a rageous kind of sense. But I kind of feel like this one kind of has like a more kind of makeshift and just kind of more comfy type atmosphere about it. Definitely good. We're just getting a few beers at like a night venue, something like that, going to a billiards hall, playing some pool, some of those type moments. Going to a billiards hall, playing some pool, some of those type moments, just kind of car traverse in the evening, some of that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. Just really like the comfy kind of energy. This is just a good affable kind of one to have for some blue collar type bops as far as like late shifts, graveyard shift type stuff as far as that kind of goes. That's a nice one. So it's just interesting about this album. I really feel like this is a hit album, has a lot of great stuff on here. This would have to say overall, this is just a thrilling kind of venture for Sum 41 as far as that kind of went. I do like All Killer No Filler, but this is another hit album. So they definitely didn't have the sophomore slump. I just would have to say the singles that they conveyed on here, even if they didn't have like the affable, complete, ubiquitous type feel of Fat Lip and maybe In Too Deep, I still feel like these songs are pretty damn good. And they charted, even though they didn't chart on the Billboard 100 as much this time, and the new metal and pop punk craze had kind of simmered a little bit down, I still would have to say that these are some good ones that I really didn't notice the difference between pop punk starting to dwindle towards 2002 and 2003, as this was being late 2002 and early 2003 as that was starting to happen. But I look at it, there's just some good stuff on here. So talk about the 10, to talk about the 10 songs out of 12 I recommend. It's just easier to recommend. It's just easier to talk about the 2 songs I don't recommend. So the only 2 songs I don't recommend would just be My Direction and ANIC, which is Anna Nicole is a cunt. And that's just kind of, I didn't really like Anna Nicole is a cunt just because that one just, it was just kind of a messy song that probably just felt like a sketch and a skit of a song, but just didn't really carry the energy that well. It was just kind of a random blurb of something, but didn't enjoy that one too much. And then My Direction was just kind of a messy type song that just didn't have a lot of kind of this like edginess just in terms of what it did. That's really the only dud on here in terms of like the regular song formats that just kind of had. Most of this album is just pretty sheer and ready to go as far as that kind of went. So talk about the songs I do recommend. A real nice one on here that's a pretty good house party tune is Billy Spleen. This is another gnarled kind of one, like a lot of the riffs on here, just some real nice heavy metal. This is kind of a gnarled, heavy hitting hangout party bop. I would have to say it's catchy. It's got some catchy and loud energy, definitely, and it's just a good jovial. It's good. It's some good jovial malaise, I would have to say. So this is just one. Like I did like the fact like they do have some nightlife on here, but I do like the fact that they had room for some house party tunes. This is Billy Spleen is just an excellent kind of hangout song to kind of have. Has one of the better riffs on here. Definitely like this. I mean, most of the riffs on this album are pretty damn good, but this is just one. Really just feels like a pretty central and this kind of energetic, manic kind of hangout session that just works real well. So that's a nice one. Another venue and house party hit that's similar to Billy Spleen is No Brains. Basically, this is a heavy pop punk house party hit. It's like I was saying, this is a pretty similar hit to Billy Spleen. I would have to say it has radio gloss about it, but it's just pretty gnarled. So this is one that just kicks off the energy real immediately. It's just another nice highlight of one to kind of have for some manic type energy and this overall thrilling sense of how things go and that type of stuff. Definitely a good weekend song. Just carries the energy real well. I like the fact that it's radio ready. I like the fact that it's radio ready. There's a lot of songs on here that just carry the radio gloss pretty damn well. There's a lot of commercialness about this album. And originally, I was kind of thinking that maybe some of these songs just kind of bled into each other. But I do kind of feel like these songs do kind of bleed into each other, but they just do it in a commercial sense that just has like a lot of appeal for just going from one song to the next and just kind of having some of those manic type tunes just in a darker sense. So it's commercial, but it just has like a real gnarled feel. So I definitely like that. The band work is just really excellent on here and just does that well. Real nice hit on here is Mr. Amsterdam. This is a quick, fierce punk shredding track. I would have to say it has some of the best riffs on this album, I would have to say, in terms of guitar work. And this is just a riveting kind of headbang song. I would have to say is some good summer afternoon energy, definitely. So I just would have to say about this one, it's real compelling, kind of quick, snappy type one that just works extremely well. Definitely like the guitar work on this song. It's an overall excellent one to kind of have. Just really some of the more thrilling ones. This is one that's kind of not as dark and as brooding and moody. I would have to say it just carries the energy pretty well just to kind of have. This is just kind of one that's just more of like a metal punk, like I was saying before, some of that type stuff. So that's a good, nice one. Real hit song on here is Hyper Insomnia Parachondrioid. I would have to say this is a good night venue hopper. Definitely, it's got some snappy drumming pace, I would have to say, and it's riveting and compelling. It's a riveting and compelling social hit. So it's definitely a nice one to kind of have. This is another one just for some venues and that type of stuff. This one can kind of be a hangout, but I just like the kind of drumming type stuff that you would hear. I just like the good paced kind of drumming on this particular song. This really feels like a nice kind of night venue song to just kind of have some beers and kind of schmooze a bit and just kick back with a little bit of R&R type relaxation for just getting your tasks done and some of that type of stuff, but just kind of some easy kickback. Definite good hit to kind of have in that sort of sense. Thanks for Nothing is a pretty nice one on here. This is a touching bass kind of residential romp. I would have to say it's a feel good kind of late day. It's got some feel good late day energy about it, and it's just a typical kind of workaday feel that it has. So I would have to say, as far as this one kind of goes, this is just kind of one for more tasks. I would feel like just in terms of just revisiting things and kind of stuff, just touching base, that sort of stuff, just things that haven't really happened too much and too often, just kind of rekindling things, some of those type feels as far as that kind of goes. Just some good late summer, late day kind of energy, and just kind of has like that blue collar kind of work a day type feel. This one's a little bit of a bustle about it, just kind of getting ready to make things happen, some of that type of stuff, just for stepping out and having some good times as far as that kind of goes. But this is kind of more in this like a mildly blue collar sense, but also kind of in a more recreational sense. So it's just kind of in between, I would feel about that one. It just kind of has like some good bustling energy, just kind of in a sense of just like the kickback as you get ready to go have some times, just in terms of just like just reconnecting, some of that type of stuff. Just some good energy for that, I feel like. All Messed Up is a hit song. This is a getting ready to get crunk type tune, I would have to say. I'd say the energy is at a high on this particular song. It's kind of a scrambling tune, but this one's pretty thrilling. So this is definitely kind of one to kind of have. It's another one similar to like Thanks for Nothing, another kind of one to kind of have for getting ready to step out a bit and have some lively times as far as that kind of goes. This is just kind of one of those scrambling type tunes where you got to get your ducks in a row, some of that type stuff as far as that kind of goes. The typical kind of stuff that Blink-182, Good Charlotte, some of those type folks kind of do. Just got your errands and tasks done, but you have to make the night lace together and that type of stuff. Just got to get things laced and that type of stuff. Just getting the last little bits things taken care of. Just real nice crunk type tune. Do like the energy of this one. This was not quite as dark. This one's just a little bit more pop punk-esque, so I do like the concept of this one. Just a snappy kind of thrilling type one to kind of have just like in an evening sense, and just kind of some late day 4 or 5 6 p.m. type stuff as far as that kind of goes. Just a real thrilling one to kind of have for like some bustle, just or leftover bustle as far as that kind of went. So that's a good one. And then Hooch is a pretty good one also. Then Hooch is like a good paced summer bubbler, I would have to say. It's pretty similar to the Hell song, definitely, and it's kind of an out in the wind, peppy type song, I definitely feel like. So this is another one kind of similar to All Messed Up and Thanks for Nothing, some of those type ones of just getting these leftover tasks kind of taken care of, just kind of lacing things up, getting things tied up, and then getting ready to have some times. I definitely feel like songs like Billy Spleen, No Brains, and a little bit of like Still Waiting are definitely some ones for kind of some more shrill energy, and even Mr. Amsterdam are some nice ones for that. But there are some kind of ones for just leftover blue collar type feels, leftover makeshift type feels, just getting the things laced, getting the bills paid out, that type of stuff, just having some good times and easy kind of getting ready to step out. So these are just kind of some ones for just like that 5:45 p.m. just end of the day type stuff, or at least end of the work day type feels as far as that kind of goes. Just definitely like the concept of some of these. you like Hooch as far as that kind of goes. It really it's a pretty paced one. I just feel like these are just some summer bubblers on here. Just has a lot of good summer energy, and this is just kind of like a good evolution of what this album is like a good evolution of what All Killer No Filler kind of was. The riffs are just excellent on here. The band work is just excellent. There's just some good snappy paces. The melodies are great on here. The lyrics are good. It's just some good concept to kind of get some of these just good packaging of like this they built upon like I'm glad that I'm glad that this album was not a sophomore slump and just kind of seeing that there were hits that they didn't burn out after just one album. I mean, I somewhat know about Sum 41. I have reviewed their 2016 or 2017 album, and I reviewed their 2000 2001 albums. It's just interesting kind of see because I know that enough folks would kind of say that Fat Lip and like In Too Deep or some of their prime days, but it's good to see that they had continual hits that they managed to get past just their first couple albums to kind of have some more of these. So it's definitely a good concept to kind of have that fleshed out and just have them have some lastability about it. So it's just interesting kind of have that. So yeah, talk about Sum 41. That's some good stuff on here. Definitely good packaging of an album. Definitely like a good dark and just overall kind of malaise type feel that has some blue collar makeshift type numbers, but it's more about wrapping things up and then just having some kind of dark oriented or it's just about having some kind of gnarled and just pretty heavy party centric type times as far as that kind of goes. This is definitely a more turned up project than All Killer No Filler. So I do like that edginess about it and it just nails it real well. So in terms of what I'm going to score this album, I'm going to give this album like a 9.25 out of 10 just because the two songs, me just only not recommending two songs out of 12 on here. I feel like a 9.25 is pretty damn good. So that's definitely some excellent stuff to kind of have for here. Those are about the only two blunders on this album. It's just My Direction and ANIC. So just to say that's really about it. The social score, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score a 10 out of 10 just because the sheer eviscerating energy of this album is just to be admired. There's definitely a lot of stuff on here, just real kind of punk edge about it that just has some good stuff. Despite the fact that supposedly punk was kind of dwindling around this time, I didn't see it. This is just another course of rounds, just another victory lap for that sort of stuff. And this is definitely a good project to invest in if you just only. This one kind of feels like an overlooked kind of album nowadays. This kind of one that's kind of secondary and not as thought about nowadays. This seems like almost, I don't want to full blown say seldom, but in the neighboring community of that is something that kind of just feels like, typically talking about Sum 41's earlier days are just something to do, but this is a good, excellent one to have here. So 10 social. In terms of the future, I heard that Sum 41 may not put a bunch more albums out, but hopefully that's not the case because this is some excellent stuff here, I would have to say, and this is a pretty damn good project, and this is another hit album for Sum 41. I'm gonna have to get to some more of these, but this is some good stuff.